Today, we will be going over the law of cosine, and we will have a total of 5 examples. Go ahead and download the file in the description. Take notes or try the questions first before you watch the video. We have 3 word problems here as well. And these questions will help you with your trig and also pre-calculus classes. And now let's just go ahead and get started. First off, keep in mind to use the law of cosine, we must have all the sides being given, or the angle in between the two sides has to be given. So we have the SSS and also the SAS cases. And if you take a look, this right here, it looks like the Pythagorean theorem. We have the a squared plus b squared, and you have the c squared on the other side. But for the law of cosine, we do have this additional part. And this is more complete because if you don't have a right triangle, you can still use the law of cosine. And these 3 statements are pretty much similar. You always need to have 2 sides being given, and then the angle being in between has to be given as well, or maybe all sides are given. Now let's take a look at the first example. We will be solving this triangle, meaning that we have to find out all the missing sides and the missing angles. First off, we see that we are given side A, which is 3.9, side B is 2.4, and the angle in between them is 102 degrees. So with that being said, we can actually find out what C is right away. Earlier, we know that C squared equals A squared plus B squared minus 2AC times cosine, 2AB times cosine of the angle C. And we can just throw in all the numbers and make sure that your calculator is in the degree mode. So C squared we don't know, but we can just take the square roots on both sides and it will be like this. A is 3.9. So we have 3.9 squared plus, and we have the B squared, which is 2.4 squared, minus 2 times AB, so 3.9 times 2.4, and lastly, we have to multiply by cosine of angle C, which is 102 degrees. All right, this right here, it's a pretty big expression, so make sure that when you enter this on the calculator, do it carefully. So let me also do that for you guys. And you can also try the questions. You should also try the question along the way. Cosine of 102 degrees. All right, so C, which is the side, I will round it to 2 decimal places. So C is approximately 4.99. So that's what C is. Now, with that being done, we can figure out A and B. And you don't really have to go through the law of cosine anymore because you can just use the law of sine from the previous video. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's have a look. Suppose I want to find out A right here. Well, for A, we can use this side, right, which is 3.9, and then A, and then we can also use C and C. So let me write that down for you guys. For that, we can say sine A over little a equals sine C over C. And then just throwing all the numbers. Sine A, we don't know. Little a is 3.9. Sine C, sine half 102 degrees over little c, which is 4.99. And then we can just multiply 3.9 on both sides and also take the inverse sign. So you can put this right here and then take the inverse sign. So A will be the inverse sign of 3.9 times sine of 102 degrees over 4.99. Yeah. So you can just write it down like this. I don't mind. But of course, if you want to show all the work, then you just take 2 steps. So let me also do that just to review with you guys. Sine A equals, after we multiply 3.9 on both sides, right? As you can see, it's more writing, but Hopefully this makes it more clear. However, if you are more comfortable, or if you are comfortable with what we did earlier, then you can show word like that. Anyway though, angle A is approximately, alright, enter this on our calculator. Inverse sine of 3.9 times sine of 102 degrees, and then divided by 4.99. I get about 49 points. Well, it's 86, so I'll just round it to 9 degrees like this. So angle A is about 49.9 degrees. Alright, so perhaps I'll put this down right here. 49.9 degrees. That said, angle B is just 180 degrees minus angle C, which is 102, and then minus 49.9 degrees. So angle B is equal to, let's see, 180 minus 102 minus 49.9. So I get 28.1 degrees. And by the way, you guys can let me know if you guys use this symbol or not. In my class, I don't really tell the students that you have to use the angle symbol. You can just write down capital B is equal to 28.1 degrees. But if you are not from my class, then of course you have to follow your instructor. All right, that's number one. Now let's take a look at number two. Solve the triangle, but this time we are given all sides. We don't have any angles. So here we will have to use the law of cosine. And let me write down the statement again. We know that c squared equals a squared plus b squared minus 2ab times cosine c. The capital C is the angle, which is right here. And perhaps I'll make this blue to make it stand out. Well, we want to find out what the angle C is, so perhaps it's a good idea to just isolate the cosine part before we do anything. And to do so, I'm going to do it like this. I'm just going to add 2ab cosine C on both sides, so 2ab cosine C, so that this and that cancel, and we get 2ab cosine C plus the c squared equals a squared plus b squared. Then we can just subtract the c squared on both sides, so we get 2ab cosine C equals a squared plus b squared minus c squared. Then we will have to divide both sides by 2ab, and I will just put it down like this, 2ab. So this and that cancel. And then we see that we have cosine C equals that a squared plus b squared minus c squared over 2ab. And to get the c by itself, sorry, that's the angle, so we will take the inverse cosine on both sides. This and that cancel. And ladies and gentlemen, we get c is equal to the inverse cosine of this a squared plus b squared minus c squared over 2ab. And so this is how you work with formula. And then you can then throw in the numbers. So we know c will be equal to inverse cosine of a squared is going to be 4 squared plus b squared, which is 4.3 squared, minus c, which is 2.7. Let me just write it down better. 2.7 squared over 2 times a and b. All right, and now it's just again the matter of putting everything down on the calculator and then work that out. So we have our cosine of, and make sure you use the parentheses when you have to enter this, the whole thing on the top on the calculator. Likewise, use another parentheses to enter everything on the calculator. So 4 squared plus 4.3 squared minus 2.7 squared, and then divided by parentheses 2 times 4 times 4.3. I guess 37.75 degrees, but I will round that up. So measure angle C is approximately 37.8 degrees. All right. So I can come here and then just give you guys label that 37.8 degrees. And now you should not use law of cosine too often because it's a pretty long formula. Whenever possible, try to use law of sine, right? Only exception is when you have an angle bigger than 90 degrees, then maybe you want to stick with the law of cosine. When you're trying to find the missing angle, and if you know the missing angle is more than 90 degrees, then you should try to use law of cosine instead. All right. Let's see. Well, I'm just going to use the law of sine now. Here is the angle A we don't know, and we do know that we have this side. So here we go. Law of sine. We know that sine A over little a equals, let's use C and C, right? So sine C over little c. So we have sine of A, which is, we don't know, over A, 4. C is 37.8 degrees over little c is 2.7. And now let's just do this. A is going to be the inverse sine, and then you put the 4 right here. So we have 4 times sine of 37.8 degrees over 2.7. And again, let's go ahead and use our calculator. Arc sine, or the inverse sine. 4 times sine of 37.8 degrees, and we divide that by 2.7. I guess 65.23. So I'll just say measure angle A is about 65.2 degrees. All right, so that is done. 65.2. Finally, to find out angle B, well, that's just going to be 180 degrees minus the other ones. So the other two, right? So 37.8 and then another 65.2 degrees. So 180 minus 37.8 and minus 65.2. I get, okay, 77. Cool. So measure angle B is 77. So that is number 2. Okay, number 3. Let's first read the question. Okay, number 3. Let's first read the question and then we will draw a picture to illustrate the situation. So it says that we are flying in a straight path for 1 hour and 30 minutes and we will make a course correction. We will turn 11 degrees to the right of the original. And then we go for 2 more hours. And let's say we have a constant speed of 500 miles per hour. How far is the pilot from her starting position? So here's the picture. Let's say we are just flying straight pathway like this. And let's say we have gone for 1 hour and 30 minutes. But what's the distance though? We have the time here and we also have the speed here. So we can just multiply them and we will get the distance. So 1 hour and 30 minutes, that's 1.5 hours. And we multiply by 500 miles per hour. And that will be 750. And this is miles. So that is the distance right here, 750. And we're supposed to keep on going like this. But as the question said, we will make a course correction. So we are going to turn 11 degrees to the right. So it will be like this, right? So we will actually pick up from this point, and then maybe we'll have another side like that. So this angle is meant to be 11 degrees. And let me just put that down right here. This is 11 degrees. And we should also figure out the length of that blue segment. For the blue part, we have gone for 2 hours. So same thing. 2 hours times 500 miles per hour, and that will be 1000 miles. So we can just now label the blue part as 1000. And the question is asking us, we want to go from the starting to here, and we have to find out the distance. So we just want the red part. Okay, so here's the deal. We have two sides of a triangle, right? The 750 and also the 1000. That's good. And well, we need the angle in between them. And if you take a look, we do know this angle, which is actually pretty nice, because this right here is 11 degrees. That means this angle here has to be what? This angle must be 180 degrees, because that was supposed to be a straight line. And then minus 11 degrees, which is 169 degrees. And now let's just go ahead and do some labeling. So we can say this right here is my A, and let's say the blue one is the B. And let's say the angle right here is C, and the side right here is little c. And we can use the law of cosine. So here we go. We know that c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared minus 2ab times cosine c, and just take the square root on both sides. C is equal to the positive square root, of course, for the distance. All right, A is 750, and then square that, plus B is 1000. Square that, and then minus 2ab, so 2 times 750, and then 1000, and then times cosine of 169 degrees. Yeah, usually for the law of sine questions, you get like pretty big expressions, but the computations is just going to be on calculators. So just go ahead, be patient a little bit. I am going to enter down the calculator for you guys. Times cosine of 169 degrees. All right, so I get approximately 1742 and 0.11. And this is length, so it will be miles. And that answers the question. The C is exactly what we were trying to find. So that's that. Now, next one. We are going to find the distance across a small lake, and it says that we are at here, right, at the point C, and we are given the A and B values though. So A is 2.26 miles, so perhaps let's go ahead and label that. This is 2.26 miles, 2.62 miles, and then B is 3.11 miles. And we have to find the distance across the lake, which is this part, of course. Great, because this is exactly the law of cosine, just like what we did earlier. So let's go ahead and label this as little c. So c squared equals a squared plus b squared minus 2ab times cosine c. So c equals the square root. A is 2.62 squared plus b is 3.11 squared, and then minus 2ab, 2.262, and then 3.11, and we have that cosine of 40.3 degrees. Wow, let's see. So see the distance across the lake. Let's see. Again, just go ahead and use the calculator. So 2.62 squared plus 3.11 squared minus 2 times 2.62 times 3.11 times cosine of 40.3 degrees. And if you guys want to see the proof of this, the law of cosine, I will have the link in the description for you guys. I should have mentioned that like 10-15 minutes ago, but anyway. C is approximately 2.03 miles. And that's it. We are done. All right, for number 5, we are going to start at the fisherman's home port. And it says that we are heading in the north 70 degrees west direction. And that's the bearing notation, and let me review this with you guys real quick. So we have the north up here, south down here, and then west here, and then east here. North 70 west means that we start from the north direction, and then we turn to the left because it says west, 70 degrees right here. So this right here is the north 70 degrees west direction. And when we have a bearing question, usually we go from the north or south first. All right, so keep that in mind. That's how we write it. And yeah, I know the picture is right here already, but it's good to review. And later on, it's going to ask us for the bearing as well. Okay, so let's go ahead. It says this is the angle, 70 degrees. Good. And we know that it travels 20 miles. So that's D1, which is right here. All right, and then we got to the egg island. And then the next day, we are going to turn to the north 10 degrees east direction. So that's this part. And again, we have the north and then east, right? So 10 degrees means like that. So that's that. And D2 is 45 miles. So I'm going to label this length right here to be 45. Okay, first we are going to find the distance between the fisherman's home port to the forest island. So we want to go from the home port to the island, which is like that. And notice this angle, the angle that we were given earlier, the 70 degrees here. Well, if we go from the home port to the island, as you can see, there's that little part right here, right? So this angle is not 70 degrees, unfortunately. But let's see. First, let's call this C because, you know, that's the side that we want. And perhaps I'll just call this A and B. If we want to find out little c, we better have the big C here, right? The angle. But we don't have that yet. So how can we do it? Well, how can we utilize the 70 degrees that they were given us earlier? Here's the deal. Take a look. If we extend the horizontal line, this angle here must be 20 degrees because this thing right here is 90. Good. If this is 20 degrees, is there anything else that's also 20 degrees? Well, here is the thing. If we extend this line here, the blue dashed lines, they are both horizontal, so they must be parallel. That means that this angle has to be 20 as well, because they are the alternative interior angles of parallel lines. Yeah. So that's good, but now we want to find out what this angle is though. So how can we do it? Well, we know this is 90, so that means what? Because this right here is already 10, that means this angle here has to be 80. So altogether, it must be 100 degrees. And once we have the angle, we can get to work with the law of cosine. So part A, little c equals a squared plus b squared minus 2ab times cosine c. Take the positive square root on both sides and throw in the numbers. A is 20 degrees. A is 20. It's a size of 20 miles. I still put on degrees. A is 20 squared plus B is 45 squared and then minus 2AB times cosine of 100 degrees. And just go ahead and use your calculator. You will end up with 52.32 miles. And as you can see, the answer is actually pretty reasonable because C is the longest side of this triangle because this right here, we have the biggest angle in the triangle. All right, part B, we are going to find the bearing from the forest island to the home port. So what that means is that we are starting at the fourth island, which is at here, and we have to find the bearing. So let's go ahead and put down the north, west, and all that stuff. So here is north, here is west, down here is south, and this is east. And to write the bearing, because as you can see the sides on the bottom portion here, so we want to go from south to east, all right? So that means we have to find out the small angle here, and perhaps let me just extend it. I'll show you guys that the angle is this one right here. That's the angle that we care. All right, so again, that's in the south direction here. All right, so how can we do it? Well, it would be nice if we can figure out this angle in here, right? Because then we can just do this angle, and we know the angle inside here, it says it's 10. I know the picture is non-draw to scale, but this right here is 10, okay? So that means this part is 10. I'll put this down in black. This 10 part is 10. This part is 10 degrees. So I just need to find out the whole thing, and then minus 10, then I will get the blue part. So how big is this angle? Well, let me just use the color that I haven't used here. Perhaps I'll highlight this a little bit here, like this, like that angle. Earlier, this part right here is little a, so I'll use capital A for that. So let me just write that down. We have capital A here. And let's go ahead and use law of sine. So let me just say, so this is part B. Sine A over little a is equal to sine capital C over little c. So let's go ahead and find out the little, let's go ahead and find out the capital A. So sine A over little a is equal to sine capital C is 100 degrees over little c, which is what we found earlier, which is 52.32 miles. And then let's just look at this and then solve it. A will be, well, angle A will be the inverse sine, multiply the 20 on both sides, right? So we have the 20 here, and then sine of 100 degrees over 52.32, right? And let's go ahead and just compute that. We have inverse sine of 20 times sine of 100 degrees, and then divided by 52.32. So I get about like 22.11. So I'll just write that down. Angle A is about 22.11 degrees, or 22.1 degrees. Yeah, for angles, I'll just round it to the first decimal place. Now, if we look back here, the whole thing is 22.1 degrees. That means the blue part, this angle here, must be 22.1 degrees minus 10 degrees, which is 12.1 degrees. So, to answer our question, we will have south, and then 12.1 degrees east. And that will do it.